and export. Ooh, it's part of our Go Global Spring 2022 International Trade Series. We have a short time together and quite a bit to cover. And as you can see, we have some great speakers who are so knowledgeable and will provide us with all the information that we need. So your host today is the Small Business Development Center, the Pennsylvania Small Business Development Center. Andrea Hampton is with the Lehigh Center. I'm with the University of Scranton, and Brent Rondon is with the University of Pittsburgh. And we have partnered together to bring this program to you today. The SBDC system has a location near you, and you can find the nearest center by visiting the website. How can SBDC help you? Well, we do a lot of things. Business planning, strategic planning, financial analysis, product commercialization, international trade. We run the whole line of anything you could ever possibly want for your business. We can help you with that information. We work with businesses at any stage of their operation from startup onward. We provide one-on-one consulting and small group consulting, all at no cost. We have live training events like today. Many are at no cost. We have an on-demand training library, and we have centers of excellence. The centers of excellence are focused on specific topics, as you can see: agriculture, digital services, health and life science, Latino, tourism and hospitality, and the Growth Wheel tool. The centers are shown above, and each of those centers takes care of one of these centers of excellence and can give you, I'll say, more in-depth information about whatever your concerns, questions and concerns are. So, big question, why should we export? Well, 92% of the world's purchasing power is outside of the United States. 95% of the world's customers live outside of the United States, which brings us to today's first topic, which will be legal issues. And attorney Tim Charlesworth is going to present that for us. Tim?
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being on the webinar. I wish that we could all see each other and be together, but those days are coming, I'm sure. So today I want to talk about exporting services. That is a departure from most of the seminars and webinars that I've done, where we focus on products, on goods, and how to export those. So no matter which area you're exporting, whether it's services, goods, or some combination, most of what I'm going to say this morning will apply to both. So it's a little bit services oriented, but the rules are very similar. So let's not get bogged down too much in the distinction. I did want to mention that my firm is a part of the Export Legal Assistance Network. We're based in Allentown, the Lehigh Valley, but the SBA's Export Legal Assistance Network has attorneys across the state. And if you go on the SBA website, you can find out who covers your area. And we provide small chunks of free service to new exporters. Through that program, we can't actually write you contracts and things, but we can help you to understand some of the legal hurdles that you're going to face in exporting in general or exporting to new markets. So a quick overview of what I'm going to do this morning. Working with overseas partners can be a challenge, and the legal issues that you may have are going to be magnified by the distance between you and the other party, by cultural and language differences, and by the different legal systems. So it's really important that you have good contract documents, that you take care of your intellectual property, because that's a valuable asset of many of our clients. And of course, you need to know how you're going to get paid. So whether you're dealing with a customer, a subcontractor, a reseller, these things all come into play. We're also going to talk a little bit about legal compliance and delays due to force majeure, which is a term that we all started to hear a lot of back in early 2020 when COVID became so prevalent and such an issue. So talk a little bit how to deal with those things. Sanctions and political risk. With what's going on in Russia and other parts of the world, those issues have raised their heads in a big way. There are some companies that are choosing not to do business in Russia because of what's going on. Others are legally prohibited from doing business there because of either what they're selling or who they're selling it to. So even if a month ago or a week ago, you were allowed to do certain business in Russia, you may not be allowed to now. So you need to stay abreast of the rules because they're changing almost daily. And finally, we'll wrap up with a little bit of best practices and things you can do to follow up. Next slide, please, Brett. So why export services? Because it can be quite lucrative. In 2020, the government tells us that over $700 billion worth of US services were exported. So depending upon the market that you choose, you may face certain types of non-tariff barriers. So it's really, you have to evaluate it on a case-by-case, country-by-country basis to see which is the best market for you from a legal perspective, in addition to from a customer perspective. Next slide, please. Some examples of services that we see exported, legal, engineering, architectural, but bear in mind that if you're in one of these professions, there may be local licensing required. So I can't just set up shop in Germany and say I'm a German lawyer. That doesn't work. That would be illegal. I could go there and practice US law and help German companies with US legal issues. I'd still need some kind of a license, but not the full, what we consider a bar test, that sort of thing. Other things that we see a lot of are education and training, distance learning, environmental tech, and a lot of software exports. So our clients are doing that. And if any of you companies are doing any of those things, I wish you good luck, because it can be very lucrative, as I said. So intellectual property examples: patent, trademark, copyright, trade secrets, internet domains. All those things can be really, really valuable assets. But bear in mind, just because you have those things registered in the US doesn't mean that that protection will follow you to another country. Many other countries have what they call a first to file system. So even though you might be using a trademark in that country, it doesn't mean you have the right to continue to use it against somebody who happens to go file a registration. So they can basically take your name, take your logo, take your trademark by being the first to register. And similar rules go for patent registration in some countries. The stopfakes.gov is a US government website referenced on this slide. It's a good resource. I urge you to take a look at that. Okay, next slide, please. A little more detail about registration. When you register your trademark, patent, copyright in the US, you will have additional protection versus someone who just relies on their common law rights. So if I'm using my company name in business, I've got common law rights. Nobody else can use that against me. But if I register, I have additional remedies. I can sue you. I can get my attorney's fees. I can get triple damages, things like that. And registering in other countries can also get you advantages. We've helped many clients register in other countries. One of the easiest ones and most efficient ones is registering in the European Union. With one filing, you can cover all of the countries. So it's really efficient, really inexpensive, and usually pretty easy. We have agents that we work with over there that get the job done. Another way of protecting your IP rights, whether it be a customer list, your pricing, your business plan, whatever, you want to have a good non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement, whatever you want to call it, with your overseas partner. That's usually one of the very early steps in developing a relationship with an overseas partner. So that NDA is really important. And finally, on the topic of IP rights, you want to maintain control over the use of your name and those other IP elements. Do not allow your overseas reseller, distributor, agent, whoever they are, do not allow them to register the name or them to take over ownership of that name. That would be a huge mistake. We've seen lots of clients get into problems trying to get their own name back after their overseas agent has registered it. So take that as a huge word of caution. Next slide, please. I said before that good contract documentation is really the basis of a good overseas legal relationship. You should look at the contract documents that you already have in place with any of your overseas partners. And also when the time comes to do new relationships overseas, be really, really careful to examine the contract documents that they send to you and make sure they jive with what your expectations are. Make sure that you've assessed what the impact of the supply chain delays may be, because sometimes that's not covered in the contract in a way that's favorable to you. Sometimes it's just the opposite, and you can put yourself in a real bind. You can put yourself at risk for having to absorb lots of costs or being hit with claims for damages if you were late in performing. Which takes us to the topic of force majeure and other excuses for not performing. Many contracts that we see, in fact, most of them these days do have force majeure paragraphs in them, but be aware that some of those paragraphs are better than others for you. We see quite a few that are just one way, that they protect one party to the contract, but not the other. I think that's not fair. It should be mutual. Both sides should get a break if there's some valid reason for them not being able to perform. So read the contract carefully, talk to your legal counsel, make sure that it works and that you're getting adequate protection. Okay, next slide, please. The U.S. has free trade agreements with many countries. These are some examples where there are provisions in the free trade agreement that might make the export of U.S. services more efficient and just easier for you. So these are just some examples when you're looking at overseas markets. If the ones that you've chosen show up on this list or other lists of free trade agreements, it might make things a little bit easier for you or perhaps cheaper. Next slide, please. All right, so let's say we've got our strong contract documentation. We're ready to start signing people up overseas to export our services. Before signing that contract, you want to have representation, I'm talking about legal representation, in both countries. You want to have your U.S. attorney helping you with the contract documents, and then you want to go to the target country and get legal advice there as well. We always tell our clients it's a good idea to have the contract reviewed by an attorney in that new market. Example I can think of is Korea, where we had a client do that. They spent another $1,000 or $2 to have the contract documents reviewed. And it turned out to be a very good investment because some of the things that would have worked under US law would not work if we tried to enforce them against the client, against the other party in Korea. So before the contract was signed, we had to make some changes to it and then took it to the other side, negotiated the final terms, and developed a better legal framework for the deal that worked for both parties and gave our US company the protection that it needed. Also, your contract document should tell you who's responsible for the regulatory compliance, who's responsible for all the immigration paperwork if you were going to go there to perform these services, and check with your insurance people to make sure that you are fully covered for the work that you're going to be doing overseas. Some policies are better than others, and it's important that you work with your insurance consultants to get the most bang for your buck and make sure that you're protected. Speaking of protection, you want to get paid. So I see a lot of contracts that say you as the service provider will get paid when your services are satisfactorily completed. Well, that word satisfactory for me is a problem because I don't want to rely on the customer being fully satisfied because that's not what the contract usually requires. The contract will say, we have certain deliverables that we have to give you, maybe by certain dates, and then we get paid. That making it satisfactory, making it a little more subjective can be a problem. So I'd prefer that you know you're going to get some money up front, you're going to get a deposit before you start spending money of your own to develop the software or whatever it is that you're going to be selling, that you get some more money when you actually start to provide your services, and then you get more when you hit certain milestones and give them those deliverables. So I think that's a better solution. If you're using any foreign intermediaries, like a broker, a sales rep, a reseller, be sure that you make a careful choice in who you use. Check their background, and there are resources to help you do that. Make sure that you give them appropriate training in what we consider to be ethical behavior and what the US laws require as far as bribery and ethical behavior. And then your contract documents should also reflect that. So when they sign that contract, they will say that they're going to comply with this FCPA, which is the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They're not going to bribe any government officials. And then if they do, that might help to protect you against liability, because you can have US legal liability for bad things that your foreign intermediaries do. So you need to be really, really careful about that. Next slide, please. Okay, talking about getting paid, I say beware of hidden terms. Often in a set of terms and conditions that you might get from the other side, or maybe on their purchase order, it will say that this transaction is governed by the terms and conditions set forth on our website. And you need to go look for those terms, read them, print them out, make sure that they're all okay. Because if not, you've just made that part of your contract without understanding it and without ever reading it. And there are people that do that. Not a good idea. So watch out for that. It happens a lot. Also, some of these terms will say you have to use the terms and conditions that are on our website today, but if those terms and conditions change in the future, you're also going to be bound by those. So the rules of the road today might not be the same as the rules a month from now or 6 months from now. So I don't like that in a contract. I would like to get that taken out so that we know exactly what the rules will be for the whole duration of your contractual relationship with this company. Currency issues, it can be a real benefit to you as a US company competing with others in your target market if you can price, excuse me, if you can price your export in the local currency. And there are things that you can do with your bank to help protect against exchange rate fluctuations. So keep that in mind, talk to your bank. Also talk to your bank about letters of credit, credit insurance, other things you can do to help assure that you're actually going to get paid. And finally, your contract should be clear on what's going to happen if there is a dispute. Sometimes reasonable people don't agree on what should happen in a certain situation. So you want to know what the governing law is of your contract, because you might have a very different result if it's US law versus South African law, for example. You want to know the venue, that is where the case is actually going to be heard. Is it going to be arbitration in Philadelphia? Is it going to be court in Paris? The costs and the difficulties will be magnified depending upon what the result is. So pay attention to those last few paragraphs in your contract. Don't let the other side tell you, oh, those are standard terms. Don't worry about it. You need to worry about it before you sign the contract. Next slide, please. As an exporter, our government assumes and expects that you're going to use due diligence and reasonable care, and you're going to do what they call informed compliance. You're going to educate yourself as to what the export rules are, and you're going to follow them. That's basically it. Compliance, they consider to be everyone's business, whether you're a small exporter or a large exporter. It covers not only products, but also services and technology. And let's talk about Russia and other sanctions for a second and how that plays into this whole thing. Your export of technology, as I said a week ago, may not have been restricted in going to Russia. Let's assume that now today it is restricted because of the new export controls that have gone into force. So if you can't send that technology to Russia, you likewise cannot give it to a Russian national here in the US. That's something they call a deemed export. So if you couldn't send it there, you can't give it to someone from that country, no matter where they are in the world. So that would be a violation of the US rules. So again, the sanctions are changing almost daily. We have client doing a very large project in Russia. We've been having to check the new lists of bad guys that come out every couple of days. We're working with a large global law firm to help stay on top of that and to counsel the client as to what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do under their contract. The two web links at the bottom of this page are things that our government wants you to check before you get into any export transactions. You need to know who you're selling to, know your customer, make sure that there's not going to be an illegal diversion of your export to some place where it's not supposed to go. And watch out for the various red flags before you sign that contract and ship your products. Okay, next slide, please. And we're wrapping up here. My time is just about up, so let me just go over, summarize what we talked about. I think it's important that you develop a relationship with your critical parties overseas, remain in contact with them, because things inevitably are going to, I won't say go wrong, but get difficult, especially with what's going on in Europe and other parts of the world. You're going to face challenges. So to have a relationship with this customer or reseller, whoever it is, rather than just being another name on their sheet of many, is helpful. It's going to help you to negotiate a resolution if something bad happens. And that strong documentation will also help you tremendously in negotiating if there's a problem. If you can't come to a reasonable resolution, you want to be able to fall back on what the contract says. So review those documents up front. Watch out for things such as limitations of liability, where it says the other party is only responsible for the amount that you've paid them over the past 6 months. It may be very low. There may be a lack of committed dates for performance in the contract. And that might be good for you if you're the one performing, but if you're expecting to get stuff from someone overseas and they're not committed to hit a certain deadline, you could be in trouble. Watch out for what the force majeure paragraph says and be aware of what the dispute resolution provides for. Next, evaluate your intellectual property protection. Make sure that it's good not only in the US, but also in your target markets or places where you think it might be susceptible to being pirated. Beware of the political and other risks in your exporting. Investigate whether there's insurance available to help you manage those risks. And finally, reevaluate your compliance program. And if you don't have one, you should. Every US exporter is expected to have some sort of compliance program. Depending upon what you're exporting and where it's going, your program will be more or less complex and involved, but you really need to evaluate that, because if there ever is a problem and the government comes knocking at your door, you want to be able to show them that you have been reasonably careful and exercised due diligence based upon your specific exports. So that is all I have for you today. We can move on to the next speaker. Thank you very much, and I'll be around for questions.
Tim, we do have a couple. Do you want to do them now, or do you want to save them till the end?
Totally up to you, Brett.
All right, let's just do it. It should be maybe relatively quick. We'll see. The first one is, how should a wholesale distributor be registered in overseas markets if they're not allowed to register in the name of the service provider?
It's going to depend on each country. The rules are going to be different in each country. I can't give you a blanket answer, but if there's, I'm thinking about medical devices going to Japan. We just had that come up recently. The Japanese importer, who's going to be the reseller of the devices, is the party that registers. They won't have the US importer allowed as the party to register to resell these products. So it's important that you have, again, you know that this company is reputable. Either you've dealt with them before or you've done some investigating to know that they are pretty much going to be good to their word, and then have a contract to back it up. So even though they may have more rights than you really wanted to give them, if the local rules require that they be the registered party, then you need to have a good contract that's going to indemnify you if they do something wrong, and it's going to allow you to switch that registration to someone else if they screw up. We've had similar things happen in Saudi Arabia where there's a lot of controls over who can be the registered party. So it does come up, but it's country by country. Each one is different. So I can't give you a blanket answer. Sorry.
All right, and actually, I think I'll save the rest of the questions till the end, just so we can get through everybody. All right, so Steve, I believe you're next.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's Steve Shekatano. I'm the president and owner of ICER Logistics. We are a freight forwarding company. Thanks for jumping on the webinar. Tim, I think that was a great presentation and a good segue into what comes next in the export process. So now that you have your product identified, your contracts negotiated and executed, we have to talk about how to move your product. So next slide, please. So what is freight forwarding? I think, the word supply chain management, for example, has been very more up and coming over the past decade or so, but definitely has become a household term over the course of the past 2 years with COVID-19. We're all familiar with the supply chain issues and different aspects of logistics. We hear about containers being stuck at the ports. We hear about trucking being an issue. So freight forwarding really is the expertise of moving product, goods from one location to another. It's moving those products for the exporter, not only efficiently, but cost effectively, and making sure that that product is moved safely and arrives on time in good condition. So freight forwarders, they're experts at different routings. So for example, as Tim alluded to, the issues that are going on in Europe right now in Ukraine, you may have been able to ship product via ocean through the Black Sea. Currently, that's not so easily. So freight forwarders are on top of the different changes and regulations that occur around the world on those different lanes and routings and can adjust shipments as necessary. They also are able to select the proper mode. So for instance, if you're moving product, depending on the size, the type of the product, the weight, and of course, how quickly you need it to be there, they may, a forwarder will tell you the best options for either shipping it ground, sea, or air. Next slide, please. So some specific services offered by freight forwarders. So to air shipping, there's parcel shipping. When you think parcel shipping, think small packages, envelopes, typically something that you can carry. Your big logistics partners for parcel shipping would be your DHLs and your FedExes of the world. And there's also cargo, passenger, and or cargo plane. So a lot of frequent flyers don't realize this, but in the belly of passenger planes, there is always almost cargo that's being moved in the same aircraft that you're flying on. So passenger aircraft makes up a huge percentage of how shippers move their products around the world. Obviously, if the cargo is too big, too heavy, doesn't meet certain requirements that are dictated by IATA, then that may have to go on a cargo plane, which is specifically designed to move cargo and not passengers. There's also an option to do a chartered plane. So if you have a very big piece of equipment or lots of pallets and you need to move it somewhere from point A to point B very quickly, you can charter the entire plane. So our customers a lot of times will ask, hey, what's the biggest thing that I can move on a plane? I have, a big piece of equipment, and, just keep in mind, you can move a tank on a plane if you need to. Obviously, that comes with a cost. Other services are ocean services. LCL, which is a less than container load. So with an LCL shipment, your cargo, think if you had 1 or 2 pallets, that's going to be containerized with other shippers' products. So you might have one 20-foot container that has 2 pallets from this shipper. Maybe it's got, 3 pallets from another shipper, and they're all going to the same, port or general area from point A to point B. So an LCL shipment would consolidate that cargo onto one container. And that does a little bit of cost sharing. If you're just shipping one pallet and you don't want to pay for a full container, that might not make sense. Whereas you have an FCL, which is a full container load, it's exactly how it's explained. You have a full amount of product that you need to move. You're going to fill up a 20-foot or maybe a 40-foot container. And then you have other services like oversized cargo handling. So something that will not fit in your standard 20-foot or standard 40-foot or 40-foot high cube container, and it needs specialized lashing, meaning securing the cargo. It won't fit in a container. Maybe it has to go on the deck of the ship. So that's another service. And then there's the movement of dangerous goods, hazmat. So lots of products, even though you might not consider them hazmat, they will fall under the dangerous goods regulations, whether it be the US DOT 49 CFR regulations, or if you're moving it by ocean, that would fall under the IMDG, which are the International Maritime Regulations. Or if you're moving it by air, that would fall under IATA, which is the aviation regulations for dangerous goods. So for example, a pallet of laptops, if they have lithium ion batteries in them, will ship as hazmat. And now you're in a completely different set of regulations, requirements, and a freight forwarder who specializes in this can make sure that all of that is accomplished. And then also cargo insurance. So this is something that is, often overlooked. It's nice to think that if you put your container on a big cargo ship, it would be very difficult for that container or ship to run into any problems that would damage your goods. If you follow the news, however, unfortunately, there are fires and other things that happen on these cargo ships, and it is certainly a possibility where your cargo can be lost. So therefore, assuming that your product has a value, a high value, it's a very good idea to get cargo insurance, and freight forwarders typically can offer that for you, which will protect your cargo in case there is any incidents that occur during transit. Next slide, please. All right, so really busy slide right here. This kind of gives you an overview of the daily life of your freight forwarder. So your freight forwarder sitting here in the middle on their laptop with their coffee in their hand. For an export shipment, they're arranging all of this that's going on around them on behalf of you, the shipper. So they are arranging the cargo to get picked up from the warehouse. They are then arranging for that inland transportation, whether it's going to the seaport or it's going to the airport. It's going to go to a depot or another cross-docking facility before it gets then loaded onto the vessel at the port. Meanwhile, the forwarder is making those arrangements with the ocean vessel owner or the airlines to make sure that the space is there, all the documentation is there, the booking is there and complete before it can get loaded onto the vessel. Then from there, it's going to go on its journey. It's going to go to the discharge port or discharge airport. Meanwhile, throughout this process, the forwarder is in contact with customs, both at origin and destination, to make sure your export filing was done correctly, and also to make sure that your product is clearing customs at the destination. Meanwhile, most forwarders have agents or offices in the other countries because, as Tim alluded to, there are different rules, regulations, obviously different laws, compliance issues, language barriers. So for example, us at Lyseer Logistics, we have forwarders and agents in dozens of other countries around the world who essentially handle the the customs duties, and then they arrange on our behalf the truckers and the other transportation duties at that country of destination. And then finally, throughout all this, you have the final consignee that is going to receive their cargo. Meanwhile, the forwarder, you see the shipper over here who's trying to carry too many boxes. Meanwhile, the forwarder is in constant contact with the shipper, who is the forwarder's client, making sure that the documentation, most importantly, good communication is going on, and the shipper is nice and comfortable with their shipment arriving on time and in good condition. Next slide, please. So choosing a freight forwarder, some good suggestions here. So first and foremost, do a little bit of research about freight forwarding. Look at, a couple articles, kind of get a good understanding of what it is, what it should be. And then identify your internal requirements from your organization. Do you have to, for example, have a tracking mechanism where you can, at any point in time, look at all of your shipments? Some forwarders may have that software available, others may not. Make sure that your expertise and experience is aligned, the forwarder's expertise and experience is aligned with your requirements. Check their pricing structure. This is very important. There are lots of different costs that come up throughout shipments. If you've done any experts before, this might be a pain point for you when you're quoted one thing, but then when you get the invoice, after your shipment arrives, there's additional costs on there that maybe were not explained to you during the quoting process from your freight forwarder. This is something that I feel is, was a pain point for me before, starting Lyseer Logistics. So we focus on making sure that, our shippers clearly understand what different costs they should expect throughout the shipment. Back to the routing, another, good point in choosing a forwarder is, do they have the agents and services at the destination or origin country? So for example, if you want to ship something to Nigeria, you need to make sure you have a forwarder that has services in that country. And are they digitally equipped? So what are your requirements, as I mentioned before, for online tracking, maybe document housing, and et cetera. Next slide, please. So just quick couple bullet points about Lyseer Logistics. We were established in 2017. We're a fully licensed and bonded freight forwarder. We have 2 locations. One's in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, which is about halfway in between Allentown and Reading, and one in Hatfield, slightly over 70 employees. We're what you would call an asset-based forwarder, meaning that we have our own facilities and commercial vehicles, and we can offer warehousing, trucking, door-to-door, all modes. So door-to-door means we pick it up from your door and we make sure it gets all the way to your customer's door. And cargo insurance we offer, and we actually specialize in dangerous goods. So one other thing to add, as part of the contract requirements that Tim reviewed, it's very important to make sure that you set up your Incoterms early on with your customer. And if you're not familiar with Incoterms, it's essentially a globalized practice and standard of who's paying for what during the shipment. So you may have heard terms like Ex Works or DDP or FOB. Those Incoterms should be set up in your contract so that when it comes time to move your product, you know exactly what portion of the freight you're paying for. For example, are you paying for the ocean? Is your customer paying for the ocean portion? Who's handling the customs duties, both in origin and at destination? So I think that's very important to set up early on. All right. Questions? Thank you.
All right, we'll save the questions for the end just to make sure everybody can get through. We can get through all of it. So now, Mark, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you very much. So my name is Mark Hilimnik, and I'm an international trade specialist with the U.S. Commercial Service, Philadelphia. So today I'll be speaking a little bit about the U.S. Commercial Service and our services, and some of the ways we can help you export services as a small and medium-sized exporter. And but basically, the U.S. Commercial Service is the export promotion arm of the International Trade Administration, which is under the U.S. Department of Commerce. Next slide. So here I just want to show a little bit of our domestic network. So I said that I was in our Philadelphia office, but we also have over 100 export assistance centers across the U.S. So no matter where you're located, you will have a local office with trade specialists such as myself that are able to help you through the export process. And for example, some of the industries I cover are healthcare, manufacturing, agribusiness, and travel and tourism. And there's trade specialists in each office that cover your sector, no matter what that sector may be. Next slide. So the way we work is we really depend on our locally employed staff in embassies and consulates across the world. We have commercial specialists that are citizens of whatever foreign country it may be that are employed at the embassy or consulate, and they are really the boots on the ground that are helping us determine the business landscape in that market, and they're the ones that carry out our services to best assist you enter those markets. And as you can see on this map, where we may not have staff in an embassy or consulate, we partner with a State Department post that fulfills our services and helps you in the same way one of our sections would. Next slide. So in terms of the services we provide, we're really here to help you through the export process and hold your hand through that process. So in general, we're here for any sort of export counseling and any export issue. So this might range from developing an export strategy or determining target markets, and then also looking into export controls and compliance and things like that, as well as any issues that may arise down the line, such as customs issues or trade barriers. We can help you work through some of those issues going through our posts at the embassies and consulates. But we also offer some paid services that can help you expand your exports. So for example, this might include market intelligence and research reports for a specific market, and then also business matchmaking, which could look like connecting with pre-screened buyers or distributors or partners in foreign markets that you're interested in entering. Next slide. So I believe some of the other speakers already hit on this, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of reasoning why offices such as mine exist, and that's really because there's a lot of room for export growth in the US. You can see here, as compared to some other developed markets, our exports as a percentage of GDP are very low. So there's definitely room to move that number up, and we're here to help you export your goods. Next slide. So here there's just some information about the impact we have in Pennsylvania. And like I said, I know there's this event is sponsored by the PA SBDC, so there's folks from all across the state. So my office in Philadelphia covers the eastern half of the state, but we also have a Pittsburgh office that covers the western half. So no matter where you may be located, I'm happy to connect you to your local office and local trade specialist that would be covering your sector. But yeah, I just want to emphasize that we really just want to help you export in the best way for your company. So oftentimes that involves working with partners such as freight forwarders or law firms such as Tim and or SBDCs to help you get the assistance that would best help you grow your exports. Next slide. So here I've just left some contact information from my office, and you can see some of the industries we have covered with different trade specialists. But as I said, I'm happy to connect you to the proper office and trade specialist for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah. if you
All
want.
right, great, thanks. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Schick. I'm the Export Finance Manager for the SBA here in the state of Pennsylvania. I also cover Delaware and Southern Ohio. As you know, the SBA helps small businesses, no doubt. We've seen this over the last 24 months, but we are not a direct lender. So we work with both you, the small business, and your bank in order to provide that the support for your export sales. So I'm part of a division of the SBA called Office of International Trade. And this is where we support your export strategy. And what's really good about this this webinar is because you're getting, step by step, the initial step, the legal part, the freight forwarding, which is, instrumental. Then you get the expertise from the commercial service, the SBDCs, and the state of Pennsylvania. Then you get to me. I'm part of your international sales cycle. So our export loans really support you the business, and you the bank in your entire sales cycle. And what do I mean by that? The first step is your export development strategy. This is where you figure out what you want to do, how you want to do it. Second is your working capital. You need money. You need money to fulfill an order if you get it. And then, of course, is getting paid as risk-free as possible. Next slide, please. So as my colleagues on this webinar have said, we've given you several statistics. I think one that's really interesting, which really is pertinent to what we're discussing here today, is that 98% of exporters are small businesses. So no matter what your size is, beginning, small, medium, you can export. And why? Because you have the tools available to you, which is evident through what we've been discussing here. So now let me get to the SBA. What does the SBA offer? Next slide, please. How do we help you with your sales, your growth? So next slide, please. So we provide 3 programs, 3 products that we work closely with you and your bank. As I said, we provide the guarantee to your bank so they can lend to you, so you can fulfill your order. Now, before I start, I just want to say a couple things here. You're a small business and you export. That's a no-brainer. But you're a small business, you're thinking of exporting. This is where the SBDC comes in. This is why all the tools that you have available come in play here, so you can decide whether or not you can, if your strategy is correct, or they can guide you on how to make this a reality. And then the third part, which is very important, you're a small business, you're a small manufacturer, you make a component, you ship it to your client in California, and you know that California company uses your components in their machinery that they export to Japan, let's say. Bingo, you are now considered an indirect exporter. You have access to these types of products that the SBA has to offer. I just wanted to emphasize that, because sometimes people don't realize that, you might be selling to a company that exports, so you think it's just a domestic sale. Yes, it's a domestic sale, but it has export characteristics to it. So getting back to our 3 programs, we have here the Export Working Capital Program, which is it's a line of credit, a working capital line of credit up to $5 million, and with a 90% guarantee. As I said earlier, we guarantee the financing, the funding. We don't lend to you. So we provide a 90% guarantee to the bank that is providing you with this program. Of course, it can cover a single transaction. It can cover multiple transactions. Then our next program is Export Express. This is a smaller version of the export working capital. It is up to $500,000. It has guarantee portion of up to $350,000. It's a 90% guarantee. And then from 350 to 500,000, it's a 75% guarantee. This also can be used as a term loan. It can be also used to purchase equipment. It can also be able to support you with your export development process. For instance, you have the legal issues, the compliance issues. That's what this financing can cover. Then our third program is a term loan called International Trade Loan, which is also up to $5 million, and it's a 90% guarantee. And this is where you can, purchase fixed assets. You can, real estate. You can purchase a company that might complement your export component. Next slide, please. So here, just briefly, is the characteristics, excuse me, of these programs. As you can see, this is up to 5 million, and it's to buy your goods and services that you need to fulfill that order. You might have multiple orders and you need working capital. This is a program that can do that. We can help you, that you buy, you have accounts receivables over the course of time. We can also do that. We can finance, we can support you to purchase the goods and services. Next slide, please. This is the Export Express. This is an overview of the Export Express. It's a really good program, and the reason why is because the SBA has a domestic program called SBA Express, and once you're part of the SBA Express, a bank can apply for or get an agreement for the Export Express program, and this provides the bank with a streamlined process, a due diligence. It's whatever they do on their Express, they do on the Export Express. So it's very similar. The bank does not have to change their course of underwriting. And the nice thing about this is that the only difference is that we would require four questions on the export, an export questionnaire with 4 questions, and it's very simple, and it's a good way if you only need 100,000. If you have to pay anything to do with compliance with your IT platform, you want to go to trade shows, international trade shows. So there's a lot of different things that this can cover as long as it's for your export development. And another thing, interesting characteristic to this is that sometimes your foreign buyer is going to request some kind of performance bond from you. Well, this allows your bank to issue a standby letter of credit with minimum collateral. Next slide. And then here we have our international trade loan, which is our term loan. And like I said before, it can be used for several things, for buying a piece of equipment for your export. It's also can be by real estate and by business acquisition. Very important. And of course, with the bottom line, to improve your competitive position when you're for your product when you're exporting. Next slide. So I just wanted to let give you a quick overview of this, as we complement the entire international sales cycle. The money is here. Let's, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, I work closely with everybody that's on this call. There's a lot of resources out there for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. Andrea, you good?
Sorry. Hi, good morning. This is Andrea Hampton. I did not realize I was muted. I'm with the Lehigh Export Network. So we are housed within the Lehigh Small Business Development Center. And we are one of 10 regional export networks in the state of Pennsylvania. Next slide. Similarly to the U.S. Commercial Service, we provide export assistance for Pennsylvania businesses. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brett, I think I'm going to let you take over. My apologies.
No problem. I know she wanted to do the presentation too. So The Lehigh Export Network is part of the Pennsylvania Office of International Business Development's Export Assistance Program. So the Export Network is housed within the Lehigh SBDC, but there are 10 regional export networks across the state of Pennsylvania. And we do similar confidential and specialized consulting to export businesses. And basically we do that through guiding, coordinating, qualifying, support, and research. So basically looking through your specific situation. So many of the partners that are here today, figuring out what is the specific set of services that you need based on the countries, the products, the services that you're exporting, and what tools are you going to need to be able to be successful. One of the benefits of the regional export network is that we have a number of authorized trade offices that are in country. So the state contracts with these offices to provide more specialized consulting than we could provide here in the United States. So each of those trade offices cover multiple areas. Some cover just one country, some cover multiple, but you can see, and when we send out these slides, you'll be able to see the specific countries that we do cover. And we also do have access to other offices through our partnership. So if there's not a country here that you're looking to connect with, there's a possibility we may have a connection somewhere as well. So please, again, you can feel free to contact Andrea and she can get you in touch with those folks. Again, the Lehigh Export Network and the rest of the Ren across the state are a no-cost service, and we work. The SBDCs and the Rens work in tandem. So so if you're working with one already, you can feel free to contact the other. We do work together and share there. So just some upcoming sessions that we have. April 7th, we have a session on international logistics and shipping. May 12th is an overview of export controls and compliance, which is even more timely right now. And June 9th will be the effective management of export transactions, which is always very important as you're expanding your offerings throughout the world. So the last slide here. This will be included in the slides that will be sent out to everybody. You can reach out. Our site is specifically here, sbdc.lehigh.edu, as well as the other centers that are participating on the call, Donna at Scranton, Brent at Pitt, and the entire statewide network. Regardless of what website you go to, we will connect you to the proper SBDC in your territory. If you happen to be out of state, there is an SBDC near you. There are almost 1,000 SBDCs across the country. So if you, again, if you're not in the state of Pennsylvania, we can connect you to the SBDC that's closest to you. So what that ends us, wow, you ended right at 10. That is fantastic timing.
Brett, just one thing. I just wanted to invite everyone. In 2 weeks, we will be having the Launch and Learn. So that's a follow-up question just for everyone who attended today. If you have unanswered questions and if something came up after this presentation, we will be meeting on March 24th from noon to 1, and a registration link will be sent with the follow-up email to this presentation.
Right. All right. So we do have a couple questions for those. If you so just to thank everybody for being here today, to our speakers, as well as to all of you who attended. If you don't have any additional questions, you can feel free to sign off and we'll get everything to you. But for the presenters, if you don't mind, we do have a couple questions. Let's see. The first couple I think are for Tim. Tim, do you usually add the 30-day payment requirement after completion of services, or do you define an interval?
Every deal is unique, but if I'm on the side of the party who's providing the services, I don't want to wait 30 days after I finish to get all of my money. I think it's fair that there should be some held back by the customer to make sure that everything's been done properly. But I'd like to get some money up front and then some along the way as I continue to provide my services, because I'm incurring costs. I want to know that I'm not completely at risk that the other party won't stiff me at the end. So I would rather have interval payments with some meaningful chunk left at the end, maybe 15% or so that the customer knows I'm going to finish the job.
Thank you. And the next question for you, Tim, and I believe you addressed this, but just to confirm, for the dispute resolution provisions of a contract, one, are they negotiable? And two, do they get reviewed by both the domestic and foreign legal counsel?
Yes, they're absolutely negotiable, although some parties on the other side will say they're not, and they will insist on their standard. And if they absolutely won't change, then you'll have to make a decision whether to accept it or not. And the way to do that is talk to your US attorney, and you're right, talk to the attorney in the other country, because even though the contract might say it's governed by US and Pennsylvania law, there may be things in the other country's law that are unwaivable, that can't be changed by what the contract says. So you do need to have both sides give you input so you can make a fully informed decision.
Thanks, Tim. I think the next question is for Ed. How long does a business have to be established to be able to apply for the international trade loan?
I believe Ed had to leave at 10, but
right.
I can pass that along to him and he'll reach out.
Okay. I think the rest of the questions that I'm looking through, if you have specific questions for your business in terms of, there's a question about financing a startup, questions about reaching out to potential countries, feel free to, certainly reach out to the SBDC to start, and then we can connect you to the necessary partners that are there, or you can feel free to contact any of the partners and speakers that have been on the program today. All their contact info is included in the slides, so we don't get bogged down with individual questions. We'll, I think we can wrap up there. Again, if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us, and we'll get that information out to you, or we can certainly talk about those questions at the Lunch and Learn in a couple of weeks. Okay, Andrea, did you have anything else you wanted to add, or?
No, just going back to the question for the international trade loan, based on what Ed said on the last webinar I was with him on, it will depend on your lender. So really, because the SBA is not the right lender, you want to go talk to your bank.
Great. All right, so with that, I think we will wrap up to get everybody back on their way, since we were only a couple minutes over time with questions, which is good. So look for that, the recording and the slides to come out to you soon. If not today, then probably tomorrow at the latest. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Brett. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
That went well.
Yeah, that was great. I think we counted 56 people, so that was a great
That's
number.
wonderful.
And then we had great questions, so it was, I think it was awesome.
Good,
Yeah.
good.